goodbye. But you don't say you need me,
and you don't sing me love songs. You don't bring me flowers anymore.
I took the supermarket flyers from the windowsill. I threw the day-old tea from the cup. Packed up the photo album Matthew had made, memories of a life that's been loved. Took the get well soon cars and stuffed animals. Poured the old ginger beer down the sink. Dad always told me, don't you cry when you're down. But Mum, there's a tear every time that I blink. Oh, I'm in pieces, it's tearing me up. But I know a heart that's broke is a heart that's been loved. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you back, He'll say hallelujah, you're home. Fluffed the pillows, made the bed, stacked the chairs up. Folded your nightgowns neatly in a case. John said he'd drive, then put his hand on my cheek and wiped a tear from the side of my face. And I hope that I see the world as you did, 'cause I know a life with love is a life that's been lived. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you back, He'll say hallelujah, you're home. Hallelujah, you were an angel in the shape of my mom. You got to see the person I have become. Spread your wings and I know that when God took you back, He said hallelujah, you're home.
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls have picked them every one. Oh, and will they
gone to graveyards, everyone.
Oh, when will they ever learn?
Oh, when will they ever learn?
Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time passing. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time ago. Where have all the graveyards gone? Gone to flowers, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn? Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls that pick them, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn?
Good morning. We ring this bell over here 3 times. The first is to call us into conversation with those to whom we have history. Thank you. We invoke the people of the Muwekma tribe of the Ohlone Nation to honor the forebears who preceded us here on this land that we now call home. The second calls us into relationship with ourselves and to one another, that we learn to appreciate the broad diversity of which we are a part, to summon a humility and adopt a commitment to mutuality, which leads to harmony in this complex and multicultural world. And the third calls us into relationship with our children and our children's children out to the 7th generation, to remind us that what we do today or what we fail to do will be felt by those who come after us. Let me ask you this. When you're tired, like bone tired, inside, and you feel alone, and you feel defeated, oops. Where do you turn? When the fear mongers point fingers and dig up dirt on your enemies, and then ask you to join their side and disparage those who are different, what can we say? When so much new dirt turns up and we wonder where it's all coming from, you may want to look behind you. There you may see the dirt that comes from the graves who did not fit in with the oppressor's plan. That's often when we notice the fresh tracks leading to our doorstep. That's when it's good to start thinking of how we will show up, for what and with whom. At the end of World War I, after the Habsburg dynasty was removed from power, there was no one left ruling the lands of east of Russia, south of Poland, west of Germany, and north of Hungary. This area was unceremoniously stripped of a monarchy, but left no obvious successor. A variety of ethnicities called that land home. The people to the west were the Czechs, and the people to the east were the Slovaks. They were wide in variations of language, religion, class, culture, and political ideology. Many questions loomed in their communities, in particular, whether trust, cooperation, and unity were even possible. With the West's help, Czechs and Slovaks came together to navigate an anxious agreement across vast differences, tenuously unifying various factions on two main fronts. Basically, that they were both tired of being ruled from afar, and they were ready to assemble their own representative democracy for independence. A bold cultural and political experiment became what we know today to be Czechoslovakia. Norbert Čapek was born in 1870 in the Czech portion of this land, then called Bohemia or Moravia. At a young age, he was sent from his small village to apprentice as a tailor in the big city of Vienna. He found the big city confusing and uncomfortable and sought solace in religious community. He met a Baptist evangelical who planted a seed that the freedom and independence that the people longed for politically could also exist religiously. That notion took root in Čapek, and he found his call to serve a truly free faith, a faith that didn't yet exist, but in his heart. He traveled to the U.S. to attend seminary and studied voraciously. In seminary, he learned that the early Christians in his homeland of Bohemia and Moravia once practiced a radically free faith that was non-dogmatic and that believed freedom and diversity could reinforce one another. Much different than the Catholicism that he was born into or the Baptist tradition that awakened his call. And this inspired him to imagine religious community in an even more liberal way. He accepted a call to serve a small Baptist church in New York. But within 6 months, he was on trial for heresy, suggesting that the tenets of inclusivity and diversity that were in his heart were beyond the conventional denomination's sensibilities. Although exonerated of heresy at the trial, his preaching remained far too liberal and his theology far too compelling for him to either be accepted or ignored. He became something of a nomadic evangelical searching for a church. He was 49 years old and married before 2 of his 11 children discovered Unitarianism. When those 2 children took him to visit a congregation that they had discovered in Orange, New Jersey, Čapek's restless, non-dogmatic, liberal heart felt at home. Leaders at the American Unitarian Association soon sponsored him to return to his home country to start a church. It was into this anxious, post-war, polarized political landscape that his fiercely optimistic and innovative brand of religious humanism finally caught fire. Čapek affirmed what the people knew to be true, that we are all living in a divided world, that division, even corruption and evil were real. But he also affirmed that the possibility of peace, trust, unity, and diversity were also possible. He reinvented rituals such as the ritual we will celebrate today, the flower communion, that reimagined sacraments to be the source of power that were in the hearts of the people instead of in the gods or in the powers of the church. He asked people of his church to show up for one another, to bring their whole self. He taught them a ritual whereby each June all the members of the church would bring with them to church that morning a flower they selected that represented their own unique and undeniable expression. So hundreds of people, each with a unique heritage, language, religious history, class, and complexion, could be represented by a flower's unique size, shape, color, and smell. And he let people know that any time they dared to show up, dared to be unmistakably, unapologetically themselves, dared to let their presence be witnessed and their voice heard, they would summon the courage to place themselves in communion with other beautiful people. They were planting a seed for the magical combination of diversity and unity to flourish. From the many flowers that are here on this table, we invite you to come forward and to choose that flower. Maybe you brought it with you, or maybe you find it here on the table, that represents your own unique spirits. And then take that flower and then place it into one of the communal vases that will represent your commitment to this place and to one another. If you are online, we invite you to pick a flower or an object that you may have around you that has special meaning to you and place it on an altar and hold it up to the screen so that we can see that you are part of the community. And in our heart, we will gather you in this bouquet of people that we call Mission Peak. We join together in bringing our unique voices to recite these words which call us into community with one another and with Unitarians all across the globe. We light this chalice to remind ourselves to treat all people kindly, because we are all one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of goodness and love, because that is how we will become the best people we can be.
Ready? Can you hear me? Okay. Good morning. Welcome to Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Melissa Holmes, and I'm a member of the board. We are so glad you've joined us this morning, especially on Flower Communion Sunday. Unitarian Universalism is a radically inclusive, non-doctrinal, non-dogmatic, open-minded, and open-hearted faith. We are people who are coming at truth from different paths. We gather together across different identities, experiences, and beliefs to affirm and promote the inherent worth of every person. Together, we see our job is to love the hate out of this world, to heal the hurt in ourselves and one another, and to be the change we'd like to see in the world. We use chat in Zoom or our Joys and Concerns book on the table to your left, if you're here in Cole Hall, to share joys and concerns, personal milestones of importance which will be read aloud during the service. Maybe you're here for the first time. We've been reaching out and asking people to bring their friends because we think the world, especially now, needs some friendly places to gather and find encouragement and hope. We have social hour after the service where we get to visit with one another, either in breakout rooms on Zoom or on the patio here in Cole Hall. The worship host will give you more information after the service. We put a link to our weekly newsletter in the chat so you can see all the events coming up. We encourage you to join anything that speaks to you. We also put our welcome email, welcome@mpuuc.org, in the chat, and you can use that to request a newsletter or other information be sent to you. There are a few things that I'd especially like to call your attention to. In-person attendees should be masked inside and outside of Cole Hall during the service. Because it is becoming apparent that vaccinated people can still spread the disease to others, we strongly encourage those in contact with children, unvaccinated, or immunocompromised adults to attend service either outside or via Zoom. We allow worship leaders, associates, and other service participants to be unmasked while speaking if they voluntarily disclose that they are vaccinated and are 10 feet apart from others who are not fully vaccinated. More information can be found on the bulletin board to your left if you're here in Cole Hall, or online in our Week on the Peak newsletter. The Mission Peak Aero team is planning a congregational picnic next Sunday, June 19th, after the worship service, to focus on the celebration of Juneteenth. This is the anniversary of the day in 1865 when slaves learned that they were free. Please look in the Week on the Peak or the announcements section of the order of service for an Evite for the celebration. The Evite has directions, a place to RSVP, traditional recipes, and a way to record what you optionally might be able to bring. Lastly, please silence your electronic devices here in Cole Hall. If you hear or see something in this morning's service that inspires you or makes you laugh or brings you hope, please tweet it or share it on social media or just tell a friend. We are trying to start a wave of love and justice with every gathering. Thank you for joining us.
worlds of a splendor, suns without number, new life engender. Wheel in a wheel with a light brightly glowing, moving in harmony, God's vision growing, and full of pebbles, high mountain passes, depths of the ocean, dew on the grasses, great things and small, with a light gently glowing, word of the wordless song, God's vision growing, delicate beings, lace wing and sparrow, and field of forest, clover and yarrow, life greeting life with a light brightly glowing, none are too small to be, God's vision growing.
Nearly 100 years ago, the Unitarian minister Norbert Chopek offered his Czechoslovakian congregation a ritual to respond to their questions about how to be a community that welcomed rather than suppressed diversity. Czechoslovakia was a country formed in the aftermath of war, struggling just 5 years after the end of that war with questions of belonging and identity, trust and anxiety. Chopek's ritual took the traditional bread and wine communion that his community was too heretical for and too resistant to these usual symbols and played with this ritual. He turned instead to the beauty of nature all around them and invited each of his congregants to find a flower and bring it to the church one Sunday. That each person would find the flower that was beautiful to them was a symbol of their affirmation that each of us has a piece of the truth, our unique sense of what beauty means. On their way into the church, his congregation was in turn invited, each of them, to place that flower in a vase, which symbolized their free choice to enter into community alongside all the other people that saw beauty in their own way, symbolized by their flowers placed there as well. A free church where people freely choose to walk together across their differences. Once everyone had gathered, they'd bring the vase forward. Then the minister, Chopek, he would bless it. And then he'd invite everyone to choose a flower to take home with them, but just not the one that they came with. Again, this free choice affirmed each person's choice to be blessed by another and to receive with an open heart their different understandings of beauty and to feel connected rather than divided by this difference. In this moment where so many forces seek to divide people, to play on our fears of differences and our anxieties of the other, here we remember that we freely choose to walk together and to be blessed by the differences between us and to see these differences as beauty.
Here it said in the story, we freely choose to walk together and to be blessed by the differences between us and to see these differences as beauty. There is a theme and a theology in what Chopik says that runs through everything that we do together, even here in this community. Think about the things that we say every Sunday when we get together. In our chalice lighting, we declare that we'll treat all people kindly because we are all one family. That we will take good care of the earth because it is our home. And that we will live lives full of goodness and love so that together we can become the best people we can be. In our welcome, we hear that we gather across different identities, experiences, and beliefs to affirm and promote the inherent worth of every person. And that we see our job is to love the hate out of this world. In the hymn that we sang this morning, we heard the phrase from this theology that Norbert Chopik wrote. Norbert Chopik wrote that hymn, by the way, and he uses the words, color and fragrance, magical rhythm, sweet changing music will change us with them. Life within life, inner light gently glowing, surely you seem to be God's vision growing. It's a theology of radical interdependence. What befalls one affects all, and when the sea rises, all boats are lifted. When Chopik returned to his homeland after studying in the U.S., he established his own church in the heart of Prague, and yes, it was called Unitaria. It didn't look anything like the picture on the cartoon. In less than 20 years, the people, hungry for a kind of positive, uplifting, radically inclusive, and interdependent theology that Chopik was offering, turned that tiny, fledgling Unitarian community into a community of 3,000 members. It quickly became the largest Unitarian congregation anywhere in the world. He had finally made himself a religious home and a success in liberal religion. As his biographer, Richard Henry, observed, Chopik brought what he said, quote, a sun-drenched pre-Holocaust faith. He preached that religion was God's vision growing, a sense of inner harmony, the precondition of strong character, good health, joyful moods, and a victorious creative life. Yet as the ambiguity and turmoil of this time unfolded, Chopik was not the only influence on the region or its people. While Unitaria grew, so did the ambitions and authoritarianism of Adolf Hitler. These two powerful influences did not arise without the other's notice. Chopik felt the trauma and fear stir in the DNA of his people who for generations had lived under oppression and authoritarian control. Chopik preached that a free religion required a free Czechoslovakia. Those in the Third Reich recognized the stirrings of Chopik's small but revolutionary-minded community. They listed Chopik and Unitaria as subversive influences. It doesn't require much in the way of historical documentation to see the parallels between Chopik's ministry and our ministry here today. The people of the 1930s, Unitaria, saw what lines were being drawn upon their generation They could unite together in support of diversity and inclusivity, or fall to the growing foment of superiority and exclusion. Those people in the 1930s knew, as we know, that it's a matter of showing up and empowering a cooperative democracy, or resigning individual agency to autocracy. They recognize, like we do, that we will either gather together to trust and love one another, or ourselves fall to the fear and suspicion that keeps us separate and divided. The beauty of this Mission Peak garden is that it exists because we exist. Without the color and contrast of each flower in this garden, our community does not achieve its full potential. Each week we gather together for more than ourselves. We want to make sure that the ministries that we need, the ones that infuse worth and dignity into our children, our youth, and our programs of learning and leadership, are supported in the world. You can give this morning to the collection as we take it up now, if you are in Cole Hall, or if you are online with us, you can mail a check to Mission Peak UU congregation at the address on the screen. You can also use various bill pay options, or drop your check into the mail, or just back up your van of cash and deposit it right in front of the church. We'll take care of you. Please know that your support adds to the love and liberation of our members, friends, and staff, and becomes part of the mission in this world. As you consider your contributions, please take an opportunity to place another flower in the communal vase to symbolize the ways that you make a difference in the love, the learning, and the leadership that becomes part of the transformational theology of our time. Our blessings and burdens are woven together. For the burden of continually re-entering, reinvesting, and recommitting to community, there's the blessing of having people who know and understand and love us into the fullness of our being. If you have a joy or concern that by sharing might lessen the weight of your burden or magnify the joy, please write it briefly in the chat. Or if you are here in person, into the book over by the Joys and Concerns table. And as you consider these, we will hear the song of reflection from Jessica and Jay called Flower.
Wrapped in a blanket of hope, asleep in a bed of dreams. My step into eternity was not what it might have been, or not at all, for who knows which way the wind is gonna blow. I'm waiting for your gentle whisper. Distant child, my flower, are you blowing in the breeze? Can you feel me as I breathe life into you? In a while, my flower, somewhere in a desert haze, I know one day you'll amaze me. An act of balancing, imagining the moment I can be, looking deep into your eyes, for now a mystery, or not at all, for who knows which way the wind is gonna blow. I am waiting for your gentle whisper. Distant child, my flower, are you blowing in the breeze? Can you feel me as I breathe life into you? In a while, my flower, somewhere in a desert haze, I know one day you'll amaze me. Two hearts in the hands of time, your love bleeds into mine. I'll be with you forever and give you everything I am. Want you to understand it's you and I together. Distant child, my flower, are you blowing in the breeze? Can you feel me as I breathe life into you? In a while, my flower, somewhere in a desert haze, I know one day you'll amaze me. Oh. Can you feel me as I breathe life into you? In a while, my flower, somewhere in a desert haze, I know one day you'll amaze me.
These are the joys and the sorrows that are alive in the community this week. And finally, one last flower for the hopes and hurts still too tender to escape the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May, for the sake of those who are with us in community, we keep our minds, our hearts, our doors, and our arms open. As the 1930s were coming to an end, Europe remained in crisis. Nazi occupation spread and neighboring countries were fleeing in all directions. The refugee crisis there is like the refugee crisis we currently have today at our borders. Czechoslovakia had hundreds of thousands of refugees to care for. Unitarians in Prague and Boston worked with Quakers and other humanitarian NGOs to raise funds for safe passage out of the region and material aid for those who could not leave. Čapek preached about the holy act of resisting the coming occupation. We are today, he said in 1938, the only nation in the whole of Europe that is ready to resist oppression. In the days to come, when we confront our descendants, we will never have to feel ashamed of the fact that we, as a small nation in the middle of Europe, were ready to defend humanity, freedom, and justice from violence, lies, and lawlessness, end quote. Within 6 months of preaching that sermon, the German army moved in and occupied Prague, slowly crushing the spirit of resistance with brutal physical and psychological attacks. Democratic institutions and universities were shut down, but state-recognized churches remained open. Unitarian continued as the center of the community. When Čapek turned 70 and the church held a celebration for him, they gave him a gift in secret that they felt mirrored his courageous and prophetic presence. They gave him a shortwave radio. Čapek's sermons continued to fearlessly respond to authoritarian politics with liberational theology. The Gestapo kept him under constant surveillance. Čapek and his staff knew that the time was near when the Nazis would shut them down. His wife was sent to the United States to raise funds for the refugees. After she left, the Gestapo moved in and routinely brought Čapek in for questioning. Each time they tried to intimidate him, peppering him with threats. He knew their civility was waning, and one evening a gang of secret police broke into his home and found him in his study listening to the BBC News broadcasts, a crime under the occupation. The Nazis arrested him and his daughter Zora. They confiscated his radio and his writings as evidence of high treason. Čapek spent a year in Dresden prison awaiting trial. It was there he wrote this meditation where he says, "In the depths of my soul, there where lies the source of strength, where the divine and the human meet, there, quiet your mind. Outside, let lightning rain, horrible darkness frightens the world, but from the depths of your own soul, from that silence, will rise again God's flower." When the trial ended, Norbert and Zora Čapek were convicted of high treason. Zora was sent to Germany into forced labor. Čapek was sent to Dachau. There he spent the last 14 months of his life, the subject of cruel medical experiments. He died there of poison gas. Life and death moments appear in every generation. We have them today. They exist in the shadows. To be poor, to have black or brown skin, to be very young or to be very old, to be female, to be non-gender or heteronormative, to require physical or psychological care is to see these life and death matters more clearly. Sadly, Čapek's nightmare is alive today. But so is his theology. When we spend our lives investing in one another, when we open ourselves to the richness of difference and diversity, when the challenges of love and inclusivity outweigh the burdens of fear and exclusion, we fall into the habit of marveling at the bouquet of beauty rather than worshiping any individual flower. Take a moment now, whether you are in Cole Hall or you are joining us online, to take a flower or a sacred object and move it closer into that altar or into the vase of our bouquet. And think about all the causes, great and small, that have been the recipient of your individual concerns to which you have dedicated yourself. And think of the other beautiful individuals who help make up this bouquet of justice that you are part of.
What you don't tell no one, you can tell me. Little ghost all ten like milk and honey. You're very brave and very free. I push you high, cherry blossom on your sycamore tree. What you don't tell no one, you can tell me. Swing it high like Jesus, wild and free. Dandelions in your hair, baby. You're very brave, and there's so much to see. I push you high, cherry blossom on your sycamore tree. What you don't tell no one, you can tell me. And when you're scared, I'll be right here. You feel afraid, Mom, cruel, cruel world, but we don't care, 'cause what we've got to share. What you don't tell no one, you can tell me. Little ghost blonde hair with the lemonade tea. There's much to learn and so much to see. I push you high and shine on your sycamore tree. What you don't tell no one, you can tell me.
Thank you, Jessica and Jay. When I stop to think about what is it about Norbert Chopik and his story of resistance that's so compelling, I wind up coming back to the idea that we know his story. That anything about him, anything about his impulse, anything about his theology, his sense of inclusivity and diversity, any of that survived. It is so easy to wipe out a person and an entire story and theology from the memory of descendants that come after him. I think back to there's a story, maybe some of you have heard it, about a revolutionary band of Mexican students back in 2014 who had a ritual every year of going down to protest a 1968 massacre in the center of Mexico that killed numerous people, that was attached to corruption in government, and it was attached to the drug cartels. And this particular band of good revolutionaries, or what John Lewis would call people who got into good trouble, they had a habit every year of going to the government and, what they said, borrowing a couple buses to take students down to the protest. And they did that this year, but this year they were intercepted in 2014. And the arresting officers turned them over to the drug cartel, and they were never found again. When people from the school and from their families and from the larger community found out about that, they showed up in mass, much greater than the students, much greater than the school that they came from, and much greater than the protest that they were going to participate in. In fact, that protest grew every year and became larger and larger and would not be forgotten. And it ended up revolutionizing the way that Mexico was thinking about its participation, changed the government, and changed even the drug cartels. One of the slogans that they came up with, that they marched with in that protest, was a saying that has caught on today in today's revolutionary tactics that I think are in line with what Norbert Chopik taught. And that saying is, they tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. One of the great things about Flower Communion is that at the end, we take the flowers with us. We become the seeds. The only thing that Norbert Chopik taught, though, was to take a flower other than the one you brought was make sure that you cross-pollinate with that community. Make sure that some of the love and the commitment and the devotion that you got from that community is taken with you, because that is the power that saves lives. So we ask you to come forward now and participate in this final act of the flower communion and take a flower back with you. Take 2 or 3, spread them around, and make sure that this power of transformational love extends beyond you, beyond us, beyond this community, into the world that needs it. Join together as we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
What page? Oh. We see in the springtime with all of its flowers, all the colors when the sunlight shines out through a rift in the cloud and it showers, all the colors as a rainbow appears when a storm cloud is touched by the sun, all the colors abound for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun. All the colors, yes, the colors of people parading on by with their banners. All the colors, yes, the colors of pennants and streamers and plumes and bandanas. the colors of people now taking their place in the sun. All the colors about for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun. All the colors, yes, the black and the white and the red and the yellow. All the colors, in the colors of people who smile and shake hands and say hello. All the colors, yes, the colors of people who know that their freedom is won. All the colors that burn for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun.
You can go ahead and put the flowers over your heart. And the other flower, reach out in a blessing of consecration that passes on to the bouquet that is your community, to know that we love diversity, we love the inclusivity of being part of it, and we love for the chance that this diversity has the power to change the world for good. Let us go out and be part of that good, and let us take those here with us. For those who are leaving, know that you are leaving with our love, and that we will follow you with good wishes, and we hope to see you someday again. Amen.